Today's video is spoiler-free. All footage comes from either B-roll provided by Square Enix, trailers, or early game footage of my own. That being said, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has finally launched, and to a tremendous success. Fans are absolutely loving this game. Reading everyone's tweets, seeing what's being said in my own community, this game has truly surpassed everyone's expectations, including my own. In my review of this game, I explained that this is one of the most fun Final Fantasy games ever made. From the open world to the addictive combat system, and all of the wonderful mini-games from Fort Condor to Queen's Blood, this is a game that you are going to want to sink dozens upon dozens of hours into. And generally, there is strong consensus that this is a frontrunner for Game of the Year, and indeed that would make it the first Final Fantasy game to win the award if it does. This is huge for the series, and there is a lot to be excited about. However, there is one issue with the game that has been plaguing it since before launch and even the demo, that was thought to be fixed. However, the developers are still hard at work trying to resolve the issue. So please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because Tifa and Aerith will be mad at you if you don't. Because we got word from Hamaguchi himself that one of the biggest issues in the game is working to be resolved. Of course, I am talking about the graphical issues that the game currently has. Namely, I am talking about the performance mode and the facial lighting in some areas. When talking to publication One More Game, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth director Naoki Hamaguchi confirmed that a brand new patch is on the way to fix the visual quality in performance mode, with him saying, quote, "We've received a lot of feedback on whether the graphics in performance mode will be improved or not. We hear you, and we are currently working on an update patch to improve that aspect. I don't think the release date would be far away from now." This is something that people have been voicing complaints about since the demo first launched. While the game does run at a very stable 60 frames per second, the image then becomes significantly more blurry. What's even more strange about this is that it's actually running a native 1440p, meaning that this image shouldn't be this blurry at all. Of course, the resolution is not the issue here. There seems to be an issue with their post-processing pipeline that causes the game to be incredibly blurry when on performance mode. For this reason, I have recommended to everyone to do your first playthrough on graphics mode. Yes, I know, 30 frames per second. Trust me, I'm not a huge fan of 30 frames myself, but my god, does this game, especially during cutscenes, look absolutely gorgeous in 4K. If anything, I currently recommend saving the 60 frames per second performance mode, at least as it currently stands now, for your second playthrough on hard mode, where it would be most beneficial for you to have 60 frames per second. But the first time you play this game, trust me, play it on graphics mode and really take in the impressive visuals. That being said, it's not just the performance mode that has been making the rounds in terms of discussion about this game's graphics. There has also been a lot of talk about the facial lighting during dimly lit scenes. Characters' faces sometimes look a little scary even. This issue happened a little bit during Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it seems to happen quite a lot in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, with Hamaguchi saying, quote, "We have heard from players that in certain situations, the facial lightings make some character shadows look very scary, so that's one part of the update we are working on." Again, I am just glad to hear that they're working on it and they are at least trying to fix these issues, and that fixes for them are supposed to be coming soon. While the first patch improved the situation a little bit, it didn't do nearly enough. However, it seems like they are really trying to fix this issue, and I suspect this next patch will make a tremendous improvement. I'm also really glad that Square Enix is determined to fix these issues, as Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS4 and Final Fantasy XVI were not fortunate enough to receive these types of updates. Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS4 still has textures that straight up won't load, such as the infamous door. Yes, PS4 may have a now antiquated mechanical hard drive, but I do believe it can still load a door texture if it needs to. Final Fantasy XVI's performance mode is all over the place outside of battles. Whenever you're roaming through towns, it can jump anywhere from the low 40s all the way back up to 60. It is not a consistent experience at all. However, there were never any patches distributed for these games in order to fix these issues, so it led me to believe that these games were simply going to be left like that, and I found that to be incredibly unfortunate. Though though it's still possible that maybe we'll see something happening with Final Fantasy XVI's The Rising Tide DLC, a big DLC that is slated to get a big unveiling on the 22nd. Although Yoshi P has confirmed the PC version of FF16, which I imagine will also be talked about during that event, and you will be able to play Final Fantasy XVI both with the ultimate fidelity and at 60 frames per second. Hamaguchi was also asked if he preferred to play games on graphics mode or performance mode, and much to my surprise, Hamaguchi had this to say, quote, "I like to play other games in graphics mode as well, because I like to see better graphics." I'm surprised that's his take, because most gamers nowadays feel kind of the opposite. I think that graphics are good enough at this point. What impresses me more nowadays is better performance, seeing games run at 60 frames per second. And usually speaking, I am totally okay taking a little bit of a hit on graphics if it means we can achieve a stable 60, especially on action games or any game that requires good hand-eye coordination. However, that's not all for Final Fantasy VII news today. We also got a brand new interview with Kitase and Hamaguchi, where they talked to publication The Verge, and how exactly they want players to feel while witnessing these story changes. With Hamaguchi saying, quote, "By implementing these changes, we bring about this new sense of wonder and excitement, and anxiety in a positive sense, that I believe is a key to a work of entertainment." And indeed, positive anxiety might be a great way to describe the discussion surrounding Final Fantasy VII's re-trilogy. People are incredibly worried about the direction of the story, but at the same time, that's exactly what hooks them in. They don't know where this is going, they're concerned whether it will uproot what Final Fantasy VII is or was, and all of which leads them down a rabbit hole of speculation, theories, and much more. He then continues by saying that if the story we follow for Rebirth is exactly the same, players' overall excitement would decrease. Zack, for example, was a character who died in the original game, but by bringing him back in the remake series, we created this sense of wonder and excitement in players that perhaps this is something different. Stay tuned for that one, because I have a lot of things to say about this. A lot, and we cannot talk about it yet. Though if there is any one statement in this interview that one might find controversial, I think it's this next one. There's nothing that a player wouldn't understand because they haven't played the spin-off titles. Everything you need to know will be addressed in Rebirth. Now, I'm a big believer that you should always start with the game that interests you the most. And if that game is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and you've never played FF7 OG or any title before it, you should still absolutely pick up and play that game. Listen, if you have a good experience in the thing that finally hooks you in, you will go down a rabbit hole on your own. Proper play order doesn't matter that much. What matters the most from my perspective is you getting interested in a series. And if you really like the experience that you had with it, you'll figure out the rest on your own. That being said, I don't know if it's true that everything you need to know is addressed in Rebirth. I do feel like the re-trilogy does require some knowledge of OG in order to comprehend on a deeper level. A lot of the suspense with the bigger moments and the twist on if things are going to remain the same is very much predicated on knowing the original story. Now, in fairness, he does say the spin-offs, so he could be talking about you don't need to really know the compilation here. That's fair, but I do think that knowledge of the OG and remake would tremendously help guide you on this unknown journey. But these are just my thoughts, and I'd love to read yours in the comments below. Shout out to Jakaru and the rest of the Ultima community.